Can everyone hear me okay? Just checking that. Okay, brilliant. Sorry, yeah, this is yet another talk on generative AI, but I thought it would be kind of a useful moment to do it, seeing as we've more or less all had a play with AI by now. I would imagine we've all had a play, is that right? Okay, it's been around for about 9 months, maybe 12 months if you're early one of the Lens app people taking photos and artificially generated avatars and what have you. We've kind of got a grip as to what AI means and what it might be able to do for the world of recruiting. So what I want to do today is basically take a snapshot. What have we learned over the last 12 months? How are we encountering AI as recruiters? What does the early research that has been performed on how AI impacts the world of work? What do we know or have confidence in that research? What do we think is good? What are we confident on? And what does it mean for us going forward, both for our sort of companies that we recruit for, but also the work that we recruiters also do? So I think we've all had that sort of kind of a dual mindset to it. On the one side, we're thinking, what does it mean to the world of work, the companies we recruit for, but also what does it mean to the work that we do? Because you know what, we're also part of the world of work. So we've got 30 minutes, there's about 100 slides. I have to speak at about like 500 miles an hour to get through this. That was the only slow bit of the talk. We have to speed it up from now. Okay, so the talk generally is going to look like this. There's 10 themes. I'm not going to go through each of these. That'll burn time. But essentially, I'm going to explain what AI is. Why is it different? What are the things we need to care about? What are the legal problems we need to care about? What's the research telling us? What's the research we've done tell us? And what the future might be going forward. You can take a snapshot of that. I'll send this deck around later as well. Let's start with the first one. What is generative AI? I think this is a boring topic, but it's important for us in recruitment to cover it because we have to kind of move the conversation over and beyond some of the cliched stuff that we're hearing consistently within our industry. I think recruiters have to move the conversation forward. This is why I put this segment in. This is already established truth within the data science community. So what I'm saying is simply what they've agreed. I think we simply should learn this and then move on. Because we can't keep talking about there is no such thing as AI, there's only ML, right? That's a cliche. We need to move beyond that. We've heard it for the last 12 months. We know what the truth is. Here's what it looks like. This is pretty much a industry accepted version of what AI is and the relationship that AI has with ML and the relationship that ML has with DL and what DL has with GPTs. They're basically all nested within each other, right? So artificial intelligence is simply a very broad term to say this is the sort of stuff that sort of mimics what seems to be intelligent behavior. It seems to be able to learn. It seems to be able to give us some novel inputs that wasn't pre-programmed. All the rest of it is part of artificial intelligence. So when someone tells you, oh, there's not artificial intelligence, it's machine learning, that's BS because machine learning is a component or subset of artificial intelligence, right? The stuff that we've been got used to over the last 12 months that we've been super excited about is the stuff right at the bottom, the GPTs. That's the generative AI that's really caused kind of a mainstreaming of artificial intelligence, which we haven't seen before. So GPTs, it's worth explaining what that is. Generative, it means that it generates novel information. So in other words, it's not retrieving information, but it's actually generating a new combination of information, which is why it produces these somewhat miraculous outputs. If you go into ChatGPT, write me a blog, it produces something we thought, wow, I never thought anything would be able to produce that. Same if you go into Midjourney, you type in a 3-line prompt and it comes up with an incredible image. Wow, I never thought it could do it. It's been generated. It hasn't been retrieved. It's a novel bit of output. How has it done that? It does that because it's been pre-trained. So the reason why it's pre-trained and it works out of the box is because actually these GPTs are a lot older than we think. They've been around for years and they've been trained both programmatically and by humans doing things like, yes, this is a good output. This is reinforcement learning by human feedback, right? When ChatGPT pushes an output out at you, it says, did you like that output or not? Yes, no. You click yes, no. You are reinforcing it with human feedback. Now that has occurred like a million times for it to get to the point where we first used it. This is why it's called pre-trained. It's not straight out of the box. It's been around for years. And the final thing, Transformer. Transformer is probably the most technical component of this talk. Transformer basically describes essentially how the AI takes the, or the language model takes the input, which is typically text, it breaks it down into smaller components, sticks a number against those components, and then recombines it. The numbers are what it calls tokens, and it recombines it into the new output, which is the transformation aspect of it. And that's probably the most innovative or significant component of this generation of AI that we haven't yet seen before. How it's been able to do the recombination in such a way that it produces really magical outputs for us. So that's what GPTs are. Most of the tools that we use and fall in love with and think are magical are GPTs in some way. Okay, OpenAI, their genius was not only designing the architecture, but by simply sticking a chat interface in front of it. Right? Remember that GPTs have been around before, but they weren't accessible to us because it was like, how the hell do I interact with this? One of OpenAI's real innovations was to recognize that you need to actually create a conversational interface in front of the GPT, hence ChatGPT. And almost every GPT we use has a conversational interface. It's a UI revolution as much as anything else, and it will transform the way in which software looks. Right? If you think about what software has been, and in fact, a lot of the software providers here today, they have traditionally produced a dashboard for us to navigate. Basically, information-dense dashboard that we have to learn and point and click and figure out what all the widgets are. The future is going to be simply an input box, right? Text-based input box, we type into it. A couple of years down the line, we're going to talk into it. So the conversational interface is going to be the future of how we interface with all software. Okay. So what does the AI landscape look like? This is what it looks like outside of the world of recruiting. I think we've all seen these charts, haven't we? We know that ChatGPT reached about 100 million users in about 5 days, broke all records, etc., etc. We also have some indication that maybe ChatGPT has peaked. I think it's third month in a row where the usage to ChatGPT has actually gone down. Have we got bored of ChatGPT? Maybe. But we also see that OpenAI seems to be on track to generate billions of dollars on this. So it seems that the investment is still going to be there, irrespective of whether the consumer interest is starting to slide somewhat. Landscape looks like this, complete mess, right? There's tens of thousands of apps every single day. App development is happening. One of the impacts of generative AI is the democratization of app production. That means there's going to be a lot more technology out there for us to have to learn. And you can't keep on top of it. There's nobody can keep on top of it. It's a complete mess, and we've just got to kind of navigate our way through as best we can. NVIDIA, probably the company of the moment. They're the company that produce essentially the chips that power all of the AI technology. This is the company that basically OpenAI buys its chips from. They're $1 trillion market cap business. Obviously, it tells us a lot about where the future investment and confidence is going to be with this set of technologies. And this, in terms of jobs, job postings, I think this is US data, but I think relevant everywhere else. Almost every single segment of job postings, they compared the ones that included some AI component compared to the ones that don't. And every segment, apart from fisheries and agriculture, had an increased number of AI-related skills they were looking for compared to non-AI related. That tells us what? It tells us employers want to AI enable their businesses. They want to build and bring in new skills that are AI enabled. And this is reflected in terms of how users are behaving, job seekers are behaving. So LinkedIn are producing quite an interesting index. They're tracking 121 skills, which they say are part of the AI family. And they're kind of looking at, okay, how many people are actually putting those skills in their user profiles, and can we regression plan that back to 2016 and look and see what it is in 2023? Everything goes northeast, obviously. So in other words, candidates are responding to employer demands for AI by either saying they know AI or really learning about AI and then putting it onto their platform, their profiles, right? So that's the landscape. Okay, so how do we as recruiters encounter AI? I'm going to give you the 4 Ps framework. I think basically we can categorize all AI into these 4 buckets. Firstly, we have the public AI. This is ChatGPT, Midjourney, all of those tools that we love to play with. Public, available. Maybe they're free. Maybe you have to pay a small subscription to access. We have point solutions, meaning products that are built to deliver for recruiters. This will be, hey, we've got a cool way to help you customize your emails, or we've got a cool way to help you build job descriptions. AI component, point solution. Then we have proprietary tech, meaning companies that are big enough to build their own GPTs. If you speak to any enterprise business, you will know that they are very frightened that their employees will be using public GPTs, because it may be that you're educating or you're putting confidential information into the public sphere, or using confidential information and giving it to your competitors. If you look at all of the GPT builders, they've banned their employees from using other companies' GPTs. So Apple cannot use Google Bard, for instance. Employees cannot use that tool. They have to build proprietary. Big companies will build their own GPTs, trained on their own data. And finally, we have platform. Platform meaning, you know what, all the tools that we use every day, whether it's Microsoft, Google, LinkedIn, you're going to start seeing AI creep in there. Have you seen that? LinkedIn, whenever I try to message someone, it says, hey, do you want to try AI message composer? Right? Or you're going to publish a job description and say, hey, do you want to try and auto-generate this? So platform distribution of AI is going to happen. This is part of the reason why we can't deny whether we are going to use AI or not, because if we're going to continue to use digital tools, it will come to us whether we want it or not. So multiple use cases, right? So I'll dive into this a little bit more deeper into the talk, but recruiters have been using AI in multiple ways, and we know not exactly, but we know some of the conventional ways in which we're going to use it. Lots of proprietary point solutions, as I mentioned. Here's a proprietary AI example. This is Lily by McKinsey, not surprisingly, one of the first companies to produce a proprietary GPT. And of course, we have the message composer, as I mentioned. This is deployed at you, whether you want it or not, right? I didn't ever consent to them giving me this AI tool. They're forcing me to use it. Okay, so I think currently we're probably using public more than anything else, right? More than anything else, we're playing with public because we're users, we're consumers, we're having fun with that. That's great. Point solutions are still emerging. Very few companies are producing proprietary. Platform is starting to happen, but not really. It's still at a beta stage. I think it'll probably eventually go to this direction. Basically, we're going to shrink the public usage because the confidentiality issues are going to prevent us from doing it when we're using it in professional context. Point solutions, I think they're going to be eaten by the proprietary tech or platform tech. That's a good or bad thing for the vendors, but I think ultimately a big platform is either going to build a competitor that's going to wipe you out, or they're going to buy you. And eventually we're going to use the platform tech more than anything else. That's where we're going to encounter AI in the years going forward. Okay, benefits to AI in recruitment. Here's an interesting fact for you. There has been no standardized study to date. By the way, this is something that is useful for somebody to do. There's no standardized study to date to measure whether AI has benefited recruitment performance. So no one's systematically studied this. I think people who have used AI could probably feel, you know what, it has helped me because, you know what, it's produced this blog in like 2 seconds where it could have taken me 10 minutes. Or it increased my open rate by using these personalized messages that previously I didn't use. But it's all like individual examples rather than at a systematic level. So what I've done is have a look at where we have conducted studies outside of recruitment to see what we can learn. And there's been 3 studies. They're coming every day, so 3 is already out of date. But 3 studies I want to introduce to you. First one is this study of customer service agents. This is a company that decided to test whether ChatGPT would improve the close call rate of agents that had access to it. So I think they tested 6,000 agents, 3,000 had access to AI, 3,000 didn't have access to AI, and they simply measured how fast they closed their calls. You can guess what happened. Basically, the people who used AI significantly outperformed the people who didn't. They simply closed them quicker because you can feed in the customer feedback into AI and say, give me the best response that makes this customer go away and happy. Okay, produces it, copy and paste, out it goes. It's faster than typing it out, right? Very interesting. Now, what a key insight here was particularly interesting was that they found that AI helped the weakest, least experienced people more than the people who are already experienced and competent at the job. So it basically meant, you know what, if a person was just a complete rookie in the job, AI would significantly help that person ramp up, compared to if that person was already a competent individual contributor, it will help that person maybe a little bit, but not significantly. The value seems to be at the early stage career aspect, or where you're encountering a domain where you're not an expert. And when you think about it, this makes sense. The people who criticize ChatGPT's output, they're obviously people that write a lot, right? The expert writers or bloggers that say, that's rubbish, I could do better. Yes, sir, you could do better because you're a professional writer. But someone who doesn't write or produce copy for a living, that thing is really, really much better than they can produce themselves. Same with graphic design. Graphic designer is going to be contemptuous of what DALL-E 3 is going to come out with or whatever it is. Non-creative people like me, it's a miracle. So it helps people with low skill set really get to competency. That seems to be where the core value is when it comes to AI. Okay, another example. This is where they did professional documentation. I think recruiters were in this data set. So anybody who's a white-collar professional that produces documentation for a living, they asked them to produce 2 documents, one with the support of AI, one without the support of AI, and then they measured the quality and the speed of those documents. In other words, how fast it takes this person to produce it, and they scored it 1 out of 7 with a neutral party that didn't have access to whether it was AI enabled or not, and they scored it correspondingly. Again, we know what the outcomes are: faster production rate. Production rate really quick if you use AI. And again, the quality uplift was significantly better for people who are weak initially at producing the documentation. Third example, this is with freelance software engineers. They said, here's a task, I want you to complete this task. You can do it with AI, here you can't do it with AI, same story. Production speed, much faster, quality, very similar, but actually the difference was significant for the people who are weakest or had least experience. Very consistent pattern. I think we should test this again, but it seems to me we're starting to see patterns as to where AI is going to contribute to our work. Okay, so very quickly, narrows the skill gap. Experience increases the learning speed. If you're composing or ingesting information, that's obvious where it's going to be useful, and it resolves the speed quality trade-off. Usually you need to do one or the other. Here it seems you can do both at quality and at speed. Okay, some obvious applications in recruiting, right? Not limited, but I think just throw it up there. You could use it for all of this stuff. Okay, challenges and considerations. Plenty of these. Let's just run through real quick. Ethics, AI is bias. We know this, don't we? It's pre-trained, remember? Pre-trained. Pre-trained using data that's been produced by other human beings is inevitably going to be biased. So one of the ethical problems you have with any use of AI is, am I using data that's simply going to be biased already, and then therefore just sort of moving that bias downstream? AI displaces jobs. Very real concern. Do we actually want this? Right? What is the long-term implication? If this is truly disruptive, do we actually play an active part in doing this? Very important consideration. AI is theft. Who owns AI? Who owns the data that was trained in AI? Lots of people are saying, hey, I trained this. You've literally taken my artwork. I didn't consent to it. I wasn't consulted by it. And I certainly am not compensated for it. I want my money. So who owns AI? Obviously, we talk about security, big ethical issue. Anybody work for a serious company, you'll have this conversation soon if you haven't already had it. Lots of legislation coming through from the EU in particular, and also from the US. Lots of things we need to keep an eye on, whether we can legally use AI in certain places. Direction of travel, I think it's pointing towards a direction, but we need to keep an eye out as to where it's going. The EU, this is going to be a law in 2024. And essentially what they're going to say is, you need to rank your AI application in terms of a risk factor, and then according to that risk factor, you need to do this amount of compliance to do it. You need to record your compliance, and then you need to have that audited. So that's obviously lots of friction down the road. It's going to be probably one of the things that's stopping the widespread adoption of AI is probably some indication that, you know what, we don't necessarily want to build processes that might run into legislative problems like this. More legislation. We have New York is seems to be leading this, so they have something called an automated employment decision-making technology. essentially the direction of travel is you can't use automation to make a decision, yes, no. It can support the human recruiter to make that decision, but you can't force rank a bunch of candidates and say that's your best guy, right? Or it can't say, I recommend you hire that person. That would be contravening that law. Very interesting and alarming sort of legislative case here. A candidate basically found that he was rejected multiple times, multiple employers, and he found out that all of those employers used Workday. Probably because it was a Workday career site or whatever it was. And he said, you know what? Workday are guilty of discriminating against me because of my age. He was an older individual. And he's currently suing Workday now. Now, what's really interesting in this case is that the liability seems to be falling on the provider and not the operator of the technology. So have a think about that if you're a vendor. You might be producing technology and suddenly you're liable for it, even though it might be configured in a way that you perhaps didn't sort of ideally recommend, but you've permitted it to be configured that way, and so you might be liable. Very important case to monitor. It could be a simple case as an age filter, or can you search against date of birth, something like that. No bueno. Okay, recruitment use cases. I want to just introduce these because these have happened. I'm not an AI expert when it comes to recruitment. There are certain people that are AI experts. You should go and follow them. I introduced this guy, Ewan Cameron. They're actually, Willow are actually an exhibitor today. But I want to introduce Ewan's example simply because he used it for his own case. It was like, all right, I wanted to create a way in which we could automate a response to candidates in a personalized way, but also insert an action point into the calendars of hiring managers. How do I do that? You simply plug in Zapier with Airtable with ChatGPT, and you instruct ChatGPT with natural language to say, I want you to do this. Very efficient. He's recorded a Loom video there, which is linked into that deck. Just watch the Loom video. 120 seconds, it'll blow your mind. Crazy efficiency gains that you can use if you just dive one step deeper in using this technology. Oh, about personalization of scale, Martin Redstone, he's wandering around here somewhere. There he is at the back. Really good example. You know what? Load up a bunch of CVs to ChatGPT. Tell it to, you know what? Here's compare all of these candidates against this job description I'm about to load up, and then personalize a message outreach to all of those people that pass the quality bar as far as I see it. Very simple, very fast, very doable. Is it legal? Don't know. We don't know. But right now you could use it and probably don't want to know, right? Okay. Classic example. Probably most of us are using it to do research, right? It's great to find out things like source sites, who are your competitors, can you track who, which companies seem to be operating in this space, which companies have been funded, etc., etc. Translating training in real time. How about this example? You've got a multilingual audience. You've got an audience that perhaps isn't English language first. What you could easily do is to say, plug this in. Vanessa Rath, a good friend of mine, a recruitment trainer, she's basically able to now distribute her training to non-English language audience. And of course, you can build apps with it. We talk about democratization of app building. A non-technical person can produce usable apps using this technology simply by interacting with ChatGPT and asking it how to do it. And this is an example by a friend of mine called Enrico Heidelberg. He built basically a multi-platform search Chrome extension, and he's not a developer. He literally doesn't know what he's doing. He simply asked ChatGPT, I'm not a developer, can you help me? And he built that for him. Okay, so future of AI in recruitment, what does that look like? Okay, let's go back a little bit. Introduce these two terms, AI exposed versus AI insulated. AI exposed meaning, okay, which parts or components of your job are exposed to AI, meaning AI is likely to be able to augment your activities here and or replace that in time. AI insulated is, okay, what components of the job that you are currently doing that are pretty resilient against AI? It's going to be a human first, human only task. So, I forget who it was did this. It may have been McKinsey again, but essentially they mapped, which kinds of skills within jobs are going to be exposed, augmented, or insulated. And we kind of have a basic idea as to what they may be. If it's routine or repeat, it's wide open, not even for AI, it's wide open for automation. But automation plus AI, it is going to be completely gone. High definition roles, meaning if the role is very clear, If I could tell you what your job is in one sentence, chances are it's quite exposed. If your job is a little bit more fluffy and, we're not quite sure what it is, but, adds some sort of value in an undefined way, probably a bit more insulated. Is it about information ingestion or regurgitation? Are you moving information around? Is your job mainly, I don't know whether anybody, is it a book or an article, but someone wrote a really famous essay called The Epidemic of Bullshit Jobs. Was it about 10 years ago? Someone wrote that article. And this guy basically criticized this white collar work of lots of people seemingly sending emails to each other. And what value is actually adding? What's actually happening? Epidemic of bullshit jobs. Okay, I think if you are part of that audience of bullshit jobs, it's probably information ingestion and regurgitation in some way, right? That's wide open and exposed to AI. Finally, a low collaboration intensity, meaning if you can do your job by yourself, automatically, autonomously, without interacting with anybody else, no one's blocking you, you're not blocking anyone else, it's probably AI exposed. Bad news is, correlates with remote work. Okay, AI insulated, where there's a novel configuration, meaning you're encountering novel problems that actually no one's ever seen before, right? This is why a lot of people say trades work is going to be very insulated, because if I'm a plumber and I'm going to a building, chances are I'm going to have to fix someone else's human decision making back in the day, because no building is plumbed according to standard. Same with electrician work, right? Same with anything. You're encountering a novel configuration based on what the previous human has done. Secondly, low definition. Again, the fluffy job, right? No one quite can define it. You're a consultant of some type, or you're an executive, you're managing something. Great. High EQ rather than low EQ. High EQ, by the way, EQ is another way to understand EQ is undocumented information, right? When you describe someone as high EQ, that person is basically able to read information that's not even documented. It's often not even rationally processed. That person is reading body language, they're reading pheromones, they're getting a vibe. That EQ, it's information, it's just going to a different part of the brain. It's never written down. It's going to be highly insulated if you work in a high EQ job. Information undocumented, high collaboration intensity. In other words, if you work and you need to actually work with other people to get the stuff done, that's good. And where context is more important than content. What do I mean by that? I mean that when you're interacting with someone, it's not the words that are spoken, but the relationship that's being built that is the most important thing that's being exchanged. It's what's not being said that is important. Have a think about where that exists in the recruitment lifecycle. It's that off-the-record chat you have with your hiring manager, right? Or it's that third call you have with the candidate who's somehow, not saying yes to that job. It's not documented. You don't want it documented, but you're learning exactly what's going on there. The context is much more important than the content in those places. If your job involves a lot of that, you're going to be insulated. And unfortunately, that correlates with on-premise. So I asked ChatGPT, what were the 100 most essential skills for a recruiter? And I asked ChatGPT again, okay, what are the skills that are most exposed to AI that a recruiter does? And what are the skills that are most insulated that a recruiter does? And can you force rank them 1 to 100? So what are the most exposed skills that a recruiter does? And what are the least exposed skills? On the left, we have the most exposed. On the right, we have the most insulated. And can someone tell me what a general, if you look at the skills on the left, what does that tell you? How do you feel when you look at the jobs on the left? Tell you what I feel when I look at it. I feel that looks familiar to me. The skills on the left look familiar to me. It's sourcing, it's recruitment marketing, it's doing stuff that I think recruiters do. If I look at the skills on the right, suddenly it looks a little bit different. It's like, oh, I don't know what employee innovation is, or what is employee empowerment. It seems fairly new to me. That tells me that in the era of AI enablement, the recruitment job is very likely to change, because a large component of the work we do is heavily AI exposed. How do we prepare? 3 levels of analysis, 3 ways to think about this. I would say it looks basically like this. We need to think about it at the level of the individual. We need to think about it at the level of the company, and we need to think about the level at society level. Individual level, we need to audit our time distribution over tasks. So have a look at what the hell you're doing every day and measure how much time you're spending on AI exposed activities, right? If you're spending a lot of time in AI exposed activities, that's great. Because what that means is you should be aggressively applying AI tools to help you with those areas, right? You need to aggressively apply AI tooling to the areas that are most AI exposed so you can free up time and reinvest that time into AI insulated areas. Level of the company. We need to take the lead in AI enabling our businesses. Reason why? First bullet point. C-level demands it. Nobody is more excited about AI enablement other than CEOs. Maybe the CFO. Right? So they're looking at it thinking that's going to save us a fuck ton of money. Great. Okay, well, if we don't do that, who is going to do that? I'll tell you who's going to do it. Accenture has invested $4 billion on their AI and data consultancy division. They're going to hire 80,000 consultants. That's 80,000 consultants that are going to march into 80,000 businesses saying, hey, you need to AI enable your organization. You need to sack all those people. Right? We ain't going to do it. Consultancies like that are going to do it. I would prefer us to do it. Okay, at an industry level, obviously, you need to have a look at which areas contains the jobs that are most exposed by AI and basically move away from them. Because that's where the recruitment need is going to just simply lessen. Right? You can break down industries in terms of the number of jobs and break down the jobs in terms of the number of tasks and then put the AI exposure analysis to all of that and then think, how do we migrate our careers, our direction towards those places that are AI insulated? Okay, let's recap, think about today and tomorrow. Take one thing away from this talk. I want you to take away this link and this blog post by an author called Ted Chiang, who wrote a very important blog post called Will AI Become the Next McKinsey? Now, Ted Chiang is a sci-fi author, but I think he wrote one of the most important pieces about the future of AI and our relationship with technology that I've ever read in my entire life. I truly recommend you go ahead and read this document. It's a short essay. He's a wonderful writer. It's easy to read, but he asks some really important questions. And the really important question is this. Why is it that technology never actually serves humanity? Is productivity the only output for technology innovation? If you remember one of the very early memes that existed in modern communications, 1950s America, where you had some housewife with curly hair, she's hoovering away, she's got, you know, a refrigerator there, she's got all the mod cons in the house. Concept there was, you know what? Technology is going to save you time. You're going to spend some time and drink tea in the afternoon because, you know, you don't need to work as hard because technology is going to take it off your weight. Now, if you're a person living in society today, are we working any less harder than we've ever worked? Right? Burnout rates, massive level. Mental health crisis, massive level. We have no time. We're always stressed. We can't take care of our families. We're not having family anymore. Why does technology not save us time? That's the question that Ted Chiang is asking. And I think the reason why it doesn't save us time is because the people that own technology capture the time. They take the time, they convert it to profit and make excess profit. If you look at the chart of sort of economic inequality, that has occurred more or less since the time of that housewife, 1950s onwards. The levels of inequality have been exponential. If you want to look at a hockey-shaped curve, look at the overall ownership of wealth by the 1% compared to 99%. It goes like a hockey-shaped curve, right? Because technology has been used, taking the time, converted to profit, and the profit goes to the 1%. So what we need to do, when AI comes to us, we're entering the AI world, the question is, okay, do we accept do more with less? That's the mantra the CFOs and CEOs are going to tell you. Do more with less, Mr. or Mrs. Recruiter. We're going to say yes most of the time, right? What does that mean? It means we're going to go from 30 vacancies to 300 vacancies. Our effort is not going to go any down. Our lives aren't going to get better. We're going to be working as hard, if not harder than ever before. But we'll just do it with less people. That's the choice. Do we accept that? The alternative argument is to say, you know what? we're going to take the extra time, but we're going to reinvest it on the stuff we think really matters. The reason why candidate experience is terrible is because we don't have time to give candidates the experience that they deserve. Well, okay, instead of doing extra vacancies per man, what I'm going to do is keep the vacancy rate the same, but redeploy the effort towards making better candidate experience, towards better DE&I initiatives, towards more equitable hiring experience. We diversify the value that we give back to companies to say, you know what, it's not just about the numbers of headcount that we're going to deliver in this time frame and reduce the cost per hire. It's about adding value in different places, diversifying the value prop for TA. And, or we say, you know what, why don't we give our time back? AI is going to save us a bunch of time. Great. Where's the 4-day working week? Why not? The time that we need to spend looking after our people, looking after our families, that is something the state otherwise has to do. Why are we not able to do that? We should be able to do it. That's the negotiation we need to have with our employers, with our bosses. So, this is the choice. This is the pathway I see in an AI-enabled future. Number one, do more with less. I think that ends up being taking more requirements per person, being AI-enabled, being super sort of powered as a recruiter, but simply doing with less people. Or we can say, let's diversify the value and make sure that we add value in different places and improve longevity of what we do because we secure it for the business. It's not just about filling bums on seats. And thirdly, why don't we say, you know what, give us some of our time back. We want 4-day working week. Okay, folks, listen, make sure you go to events like this. It's very important you keep connecting. Very important you keep going to organizations like IHR, as well as connecting internally. Keep talking to each other. Subscribe to Recruiting Brainfruit, of course. And thank you very much.